How you doing, everybody? It's the match day preview wherever you may be listening or watching. Maybe you subscribe to your favorite podcasting network. Maybe you're listening or watching on social media or YouTube. Either way, welcome. Forge FC taking on Atletico Ottawa in Ottawa at TD Place. A battle for first place in the CPL table. Both clubs locked at 29 points. As are Pacific, it's a three-way tie atop. Forge, though, has played the least amount of games, one less than Ottawa and two less than Pacific. Forge also with a much greater goal differential. They're at about they're out at exactly plus 19 heading into this match. Ottawa in form. In fact, these are the two most in-form clubs in the CPL. Forge has won 4 in a row. They've been the best club in the league points-wise through the last 5 matches, through the last 10 matches. Ottawa, the second best club in the CPL, not just in the overall standings, but over their last 5 matches and over their last 10. So Forge and Ottawa are the two top teams over the last month or two. And this will be the tiebreaker. Of course, if this ends in a draw, Forge will stay in first. But Forge is not thinking draw. They're thinking W because they have not beaten Atletico yet this season. They've played them twice, both at Tim Hortons Field. They have a draw and they have a loss. So Forge FC looking to avenge a few things. Now, we are going to chat with Gordon Smith, who is the color commentator for Atletico Ottawa on TSN 1200. We're going to hear from him, and we're going to get some more insight into Atletico Ottawa. In the meantime, though, I think it's been a trend week to week talking about Woobens Pacius. 9 goals in 15 matches. Second leading scorer in the league. Now, he has 2 less goals than Alejandro Diaz. Diaz, though, has played 2 more matches, and he's played almost 500 more minutes. Moses Dwyer is 2 back of Pacius. He's played 1,200 minutes. Pacius played 875. So Pacius is getting a lot done in not a ton of time. He doesn't need much, and it kind of reflects the way he plays. I mean, even just to look at this even further, Diaz has a shooting percentage. He's the leading scorer. Shooting percentage is 59%. Pacius is 71%. That 71% is far and away better than anyone that's even remotely close to him in the scoring race right now. So the man, a dog on a bone was the best way to describe the goal he scored against Calvary, which was the equalizer, that a very much needed equalizer before Becker eventually gave Forge the victory with the winning volley in the second half. But Pacius got things rolling when Forge did not start the way they wanted to. Pacius, again, being the catalyst. And I had a chance to ask fullback Ashtone Morgan, he's a veteran. He's played in many leagues, many different teams. His thoughts on getting a first row seat on the young wonderkin who is Woobens Pacius.
Yeah, Woobs, man. Woobens has been he's been ticking. It's been awesome to see, he's just been a bit unlucky maybe earlier in the season, but he's been flying and we're all here to support him. He's definitely created so many chances for himself and so many opportunities for himself. And for myself, I'm here just to help him, support him, and help him out with whatever he needs because he's firing away right now.
Yeah, and Woobs, by the way, 21 years old. You have to think he's on to some amazing things, maybe on a national level. We'll see, though. Certainly his trajectory is leaning that way. So, again, Forge is in a situation where they're playing a club that loves to play a defensive kind of game, a low block, maybe Atletico Ottawa may be the top defensive team in the league. Maybe not necessarily statistically. They do lead the league in clean sheets, though. They have 7. Again, though, just to highlight how strong Forge has been this year. They're in terms of goals for, goals against, Forge is first in both categories. Expected goals, these are the advanced stats I talk about a lot. Expected goals against this season. Forge's expected goals against 0.78 per game. Ottawa's 1.25. Ottawa is the top team in the league, I think, when it comes to, as far as the clubs that Forge plays who like to play that defensive style. Maybe it's Edmonton, could be Valor. I mean, quite frankly, everyone that plays Forge, with the exception of maybe one or two clubs, plays that defensive style against them with that low block. Ottawa, though, execute it as good as anybody. Tactically, defensively, from a tactical sense, Ottawa's as good as it gets. Forge is great defensively because they always have the ball. I mean, their best defense is possession. Ottawa, though, it is tactical. And so it's a very difficult team to play, and it's shown. Forge has not beaten them this year, and both matches were at home at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. So Forge knows they're in for a tough one. The way Forge likes to attack teams like Ottawa is finding areas of the field to attack and then finding spaces in those areas. And it's usually something that's identified before the match. It could change as the match goes on, but that's the way Bobby Smirniotis likes to attack. It's to attack spaces. And, they do their film work. And, I mean, they saw it firsthand. Now, Bobby mentioned in his pre-match press conference, which you can go back and listen to. It's available now. But he talked about the fact that they would have to attack these areas. And, it's not just about getting the ball in these areas. It's making runs off the ball into these areas too. It's just getting a lot of movement, trying to get that defense to break down that defense of Ottawa's. And that's what Forge is going to be after again, this time in Ottawa. Now, the leading scorer for Atletico Ottawa, not quietly at the pace that Pacias is at, but as far as midfielders go, Atletico has a good one. And Ollie Bassett, he has 5 goals in 16 matches. He is their leading scorer. So the only other club whose leading scorer as a midfielder, I believe, is Valor with Moses Dwyer. But again, just an indication of how Ottawa likes to play. We look at stats here. Defensive touches. How many times are your center backs and fullbacks touching the ball? More specifically, defensive touches. So I believe they're kind of zoning in on center backs here. Forge have a total of 497. The next closest team is Calvary at 607. More than 100 more touches. Forge is not going backwards. And if you have the luxury of being able to watch a match behind Bobby Smirniotis as he manages Forge, you'll hear him yell it repeatedly. Forward, 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 attack, attack, attack. He wants them going north-south as much as possible. And in that, again, so there isn't a lot of playing out of the back. There's not a lot of keep away. They know they're not dangerous. No club is dangerous passing the ball back to their center backs. Now, if you need a reset, that's one thing. But Forge just doesn't do it. They're head down, plow forward. Pacific, for example, has 850 touches from their defenders, 497 for Forge, and Ottawa 745. So their defenders are touching the ball a lot, and I mean, just that stat alone tells a pretty big picture. Even again, it may not seem like a big stat. Clearances. Forge FC 121 clearances this year, getting the ball out of danger. Next closest, Calvary 203. So more than 80 clearances Calvary has than Forge. Like, Forge just isn't spending a ton of time in their own part of the field. Ottawa, 273. So Ottawa is, Forge is not, but Ottawa is comfortable playing that way. They've been doing it all season, and it's worked for them. I mean, to play that style of soccer and still be contending for first place in the league is impressive. And that just goes to show that not only is the quality there and tactically the discipline to be able to play that way, well-coached club too, by the way, but also opportunistic. They're not getting a ton of opportunities to score. But put it this way, Atletico Ottawa right now, 1 loss since May 2nd. That's unbelievable. May 2nd is the last time they lost a match. So 2.5 months ago. I mean, this club can get it done. It's not always pretty, but this club just knows how to get points out of their opponents. And it's a team that Forge has had difficulties with at times and knows they're in for perhaps a frustrating battle this weekend. That's why they're going to want to score first. But that'll be part of the 3 keys to the match, which you'll be able to catch also on the Forge Audio Network. All right, Let's now go and learn a little more about the opponents. All right, we are joined by Gordon Smith. He is the color commentator for Atletico Ottawa matches on TSN 1200. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Look, glad to be here. Looking forward to this huge game coming up, obviously on Sunday, and the reason, obviously, we're having a chat here tonight.
Yeah, we had a quick chat off the air, and you mentioned your history with Ottawa Soccer.
Yeah,
Maybe delve back into it because you have a long track record over there.
yeah. So I mean, obviously, like back to I think it was 1999, 2000. I started getting involved with Rogers TV, local here, and then later on SSN, the streaming sports network, doing Carleton and Ottawa games. I was fortunate enough to call 5 national championships, 3 women and 2 men, all in a row from 2008 to 2011, 2007 to 2011. Lot of fun. University football's come on leaps and bounds, as we all know, over the last sort of 20, 30 years. And then also started getting involved with Capital City FC for their one season that they were out and about within I think it was a CSL, was it that was called? They made it to the final, lost out. And then 2014, the Ottawa Fury came along, and of course we all know that first season was a little bit of a stepping stone for them. 2015, they hit the ground running, made it all the way to the Soccer Bowl, and then a couple of lean years after that before their demise in 2019. And we all wondered in Ottawa, is this soccer done with? And who knew a couple of months later, Jeff Hunt would ride into town, or he was already in town, but ride in on his white horse and save us soccer fans for having a team. And here we are, top of the league in CPL, which is an absolutely terrific story so far here in 2022.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into what I was wondering about, just the appetite for soccer in Ottawa. Where is that right now?
It's huge. I mean, the word massive gets tossed around here, sort of tongue in cheek, but it really is. I mean, you do go back to 2014 when the Fury began, the culture really started then. Supporters groups, 2 or 3 of them were born and making tons of noise and drums banging and scarves getting put up in the air. It was terrific that first season. It's just grown leaps and bounds, even through the lean years of the Fury in 18 and 19. And then, of course, you get to the last, well, this is the third year for Atleti, but that first year was the Island Games, so we weren't really involved much at all from an emotional standpoint. It was at a distance. Last year, late season starts, reduced season. The fans were coming out, but it's really this year that it's just taken off. And of course, you look back to last weekend when the Dub, as they're affectionately known, took a bus down to York and made more noise than I'm sure any York fans that were in the stadium were able to do. So the culture's there, Anthony. It's
Dub,
growing.
Sorry, I do.
Yeah.
The Dub is the supporters group, right?
Section W, yes, that's
okay.
And
Gotcha.
you can hear them every single game. I mean, we're way up in the booth, high above TD Place, and we can hear the noise that's getting made and the smoke bombs that are going off and the red mist that's making its way onto the field. So yeah, they do a fantastic job on and off the field, driving this team on, and I think it's certainly appreciated by the team, Anthony. It's one of these things where they know how important it is. And late in the game, you're looking for that little bit of extra inspiration. That's what's coming. It's coming from the stands. It's coming from Section W and the supporters group.
And maybe explain the connection then with the Spanish soccer giants in Atletico Madrid.
Yeah. Well, they own
Right.
Atleti. They're the sort of parent club, and everything sort of filters down. Obviously the GM Fernando Lopez has come in the last few years, well, obviously since it began, and has slowly but surely built the squad, I think, in the image of what his mandate is and what he is being asked to put on the field. Carlos Gonzalez, it's his first year as head coach. He's come in, done extremely well. Very likable man. He's got time for everyone. Speaks English well enough that you're able to have a conversation with him. Unfortunately, with Mista, you didn't really have that last year, so there was that little bit of a disconnect with regards to, maybe some of the media are just not able to converse with him as well as we'd hope.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, Carlos has been outstanding with the media, and obviously the players are feeding off his energy, his coaching staff. Kwesi Loney, who has had a lot of success at Carleton University on the men's team, he is one of the assistant coaches, and they're obviously doing extremely well with how things are playing out here in 2022.
And do we, the success this season, I don't know. Did you know what to expect heading into the year and what you were going to see from Ottawa?
Well, there was a massive overhaul of the squad from last year. I think there was only 6, maybe 7 players that came back. So I think maybe 15, 16 new players arrived. Nathan Ingham came in from York, outstanding goalkeeper. I think if he's not leading the league in shutouts, he's certainly up there this year. You've got lads like Drew Becky, Sissoko coming in that sort of holding midfield role. One of the brightest stars for me that's been out there this season is Ollie Bassett coming in from Pacific, where I don't believe he was a regular starter in their championship winning season, but he's come in and he's been, I've got to be honest with you, absolutely outstanding. As important to Ottawa as Becker probably is to Forge. I mean, he drives everything forward from the midfield. Yes, he's got Sissoko behind him, that certainly helps. He knows he's got that defensive cover. But he can spray 40-yard balls, he can spray 10-yard balls, he takes dead free kicks, corner kicks, penalty kicks. Just an outstanding player. And I think he's really found his home here in Ottawa, albeit coming from England and being a Northern Ireland player. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The fact is that he's really fit in. And then, of course, you got, Balu Tabla. I mean, there's another player who, has been at a few different stops. Impact, he's at Barcelona B. He's had opportunities at different places. He's possibly found a home here as well. He looks to be happy. He was one of the players that we interviewed post-game after, I think it was the Valor game, the 1-1 draw a couple of weeks ago. And he just definitely seemed far more comfortable. I think early on he struggled a little bit. Anthony, he played out on the wing. I think now he's getting the opportunity to be a bit more of a free rein, come in off the wing. But you know yourself, when you're stuck out on the wing, if you're not getting the service and you're not coming back and demanding the ball yourself, you're like a pylon out there at times. And I think in his first couple of games, he really struggled that way. But since about the third or fourth game, my goodness, he's just taken off. And he's one of these players that gets people out of their seats. I mean, we talk about, players that make you want to pay your money to go watch games. He certainly is one of those players.
And whenever, Forge has played most of their matches this year, it seems like we've been talking just to the club and to the team about facing, low blocks and teams defending well against them and trying to frustrate Forge. And I don't know that any team has done it better than Ottawa. I mean, 2 matches in Hamilton, they have a win, they have a draw. They have the most clean sheets in the league. What is it about these tactics that are working for them?
Well, you watch games all around the world, and you see, you hear the slow block and, parking the bus. I certainly don't think it's a parking the bus approach. You don't sit at the top of the CPL tied with 29 points by parking the bus. You've obviously won more games than you've lost. You've won more games than you've tied. And to get into that sort of scenario, you're obviously doing something right as a unit. I mean, we always talk about you defend from the front. I mean, your front striker, a lot, whether it's Wright that's playing up there by himself, sometime it's Shaw, Moragrega. These guys are working between the 2 stoppers. The amount of running that gets done to try and close the 2 lads, the big stoppers. Even if you're playing a back 3, you're doing the same thing, running between the 3 of them. And I think that makes a big difference. And then you've got your sort of 3 that are hanging behind. Sometimes we play a 4-1-4-1. It just sort of moves depending on how the game's flowing. But every single one of these players knows their defensive responsibilities. They're willing to put the defensive work in, Anthony. And I think that's what really helps them when you get into a counter-attack situation, because this team can attack very, very fast, certainly down the flanks, but they've also got the pace down the middle if they need it.
Yeah, again, Forge saw it firsthand at Tim Hortons Field this year. Is there a level of excitement just from the club, maybe even from the fans, that Forge is coming in this weekend and first place is on the line?
Definitely. I mean, like you look at the sort of 4 seasons, well, the first 3 plus a half a season now. The first 2 seasons was pretty much the big 2. It was Forge and Cavalry. I mean, whether Cavalry could have won one of the two, or it doesn't matter. They didn't.
Yeah.
And you get to the third season, and now all of a sudden Pacific makes it the big three. And you get now to year 4, and Ottawa's knocking on the door trying to make it the big 4. And as the sort of season progresses, I think, you are going to start to see a top 4, a middle 2, and a bottom 2, unfortunately. And it's the onus is on the middle 2 to try and force their way in. And if Halifax and Valor can get on a bit of a streak, then who knows? They might be able to force a Pacific or an Ottawa if they go through a bad patch out of that top 4. But the excitement is certainly growing for a Forge coming in. I mean, Forge has been, let's be honest, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on your cast. They've been the class of the league the last 3 seasons. Last year, obviously, a bit of a hiccup, but the work that they've done in the Voyageurs Cup or the Canadian Championship, the work they've done in CONCACAF, it's been amazing to watch. And they've been carrying the torch for the last, few years for the CPL, and fingers crossed it's going to be, Pacific's going to have an opportunity. Who knows? Maybe next year Ottawa might have an opportunity, but the excitement is most certainly on. I was on Ottawa radio this morning. They had Nathan Ingham on TSN 1200 this afternoon, and he was giving his thoughts on the game and his thoughts on the league and the team as a whole. But there certainly is a buzz about the place, Anthony, that we knew was always going to be there if the product on the field warranted it. And the fans were always going to come out. But it's now that extra excitement. You're hopefully seeing the crowds go from 3 to 3,500 now to 4. And if you can slowly push your way to Halifax levels, that would be absolutely fantastic. Because from a participation standpoint, that's the gold standard. You want to get to where Halifax is. You look at some of these games, Tim Hortons Field, TD Place, out in Winnipeg as well. Sometimes it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, looking for fans. And
yeah.
It's tough. I understand the economics of it, and they're owned by these teams, and that's where they're going to play. But it's the smaller, soccer-specific stadiums that are really going to drive this league forward. And I think that's why Halifax is such a success off the field. Maybe not so much on the field, but there's still time for them to get that right, and Coach Hart to, pull the rabbit out of the hat and make their way into a playoff spot.
Well, Gordon, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I am curious, for someone who's covered soccer and covered the sport as long as they have in this country, was there a time when something like the CPL would have been almost incomprehensible? I mean, it's not to have our own pro league, and not only that, but the quality level, I think, is much higher than people anticipated. It didn't seem like we'd ever get to this point with Canadian soccer, but we're kind of in the perfect storm right now.
I was around back in the sort of early to mid 80s when the sort of original Canadian league was going, and, Paul James and lads like that were involved playing for Vancouver and for Hamilton and what have you. And I'd played a couple of years at university at Carleton, and I'd left Carleton just the year before, I think it was the National Capital Pioneers started up. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance because my Carleton coach, Bill Holmes, actually became the coach at the National Capital. So I may have had an opportunity to play semi-pro or whatever level it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through a situation where we qualify for 86 World Cup. And I remember when Carleton University hosted the National Championship, I believe it was 2008. And we had Paul James as a guest speaker in 2008 coming in on a Friday night. One of these wee banquet things that gets done at university national championships. And Paul James' comment, and we'll never ever forget it. He says, Canada's most successful period was when we had our own national league. And that's exactly where we're hoping we're going to get to right now. Yes, we've had some dark years. We've had some years where the national teams, gone to Honduras, and we all know we don't need to bring that up, absolutely hammered. And we've got scenarios where, we haven't even qualified for the later stages of qualifying. And now all of a sudden you've got this quote-unquote golden generation of players that are, playing around the world, and led by the big two, obviously. And fingers crossed we're able to, do ourselves proud in Qatar, depending on how you want to say it. And then obviously moving on to 2026. But we're all hoping that the strength of the CPL over the next 4-5 years is what's going to drive. And I would love nothing better. And I'm sure every single person listening and watching to this podcast, Anthony, would like nothing better than to see one or two players at some point make it into the national team on a regular basis. I'm not just talking about being brought along for a camp. I'm talking about, you know, your player 13 or 14, you're actually getting on as a sub for the second or third sub, getting brought on. I think we're getting close. I think the quality of play that we're seeing week in, week out is outstanding. And if we can just continue that growth, we can continue that development of these players all across the country. Do I think we need to have some presence in Quebec? That's another day, another dollar, and my answer would certainly be yes. But the fact of the matter is, we're on the right track. It took us a long time to get here. Whoever had the vision to put this league into motion and put it into place, Anthony, full credit to them. And let's just all move on to bigger and better things, because we're at that stage where, you know, a lot of good things at the national level are starting to happen. We're already seeing a lot of good things at the CPL level starting to happen, and fingers crossed it just goes on and gets better and better.
Wow, I learned more in the last 15 minutes than I have in a while. I really appreciate the chat. Now I'm looking forward to the next time they play, so we can chat again.
Definitely.
Smith, color commentator for Atletico Ottawa on TSN 1200. Thanks so much for doing this.
No problem, my friend. All the best on Sunday, but I'm hoping you're disappointed when 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock rolls around Sunday night.
I get it. It's fair.
All the best. Cheers, mate. Take care.
All right, stage set, everything ready to go. Forge FC Atletico Ottawa at TD Place in Ottawa. The club owned by Atletico Madrid plays a lot like Atletico Madrid does Ottawa. I need to tell you about something. There's an email address you're going to want to keep in your brain. matchday@forgefc.ca. matchday@forgefc.ca. That is how you can get in touch with me and the entire Forge Audio Network. Feedback, comments, but perhaps more, let's say a better use of that email would be to send in some questions. Every week, we chat with head coach and technical director Bobby Smirniotis on Behind the Beard. Send your questions in for Bobby, or if you have questions for any player, send them into matchday@forgefc.ca. Again, if you want to talk Forge, you want to ask the players, coaches some questions, whatever, however you want to use that email address, go ahead and shoot off an email, matchday@forgefc.ca. All right, everything is good to go. Enjoy the match. First place on the line in our nation's capital. Enjoy the match.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.